In this video, I'm coming up with a video idea, I'm coming up with a YouTube title, I'm designing the thumbnails, and I'm writing the intro. I'm showing the entire process in this video. I'll be doing this for a channel called Heather Cash Art. Basically, she makes videos all about how to create your own children's book. And so I emailed her and actually said, hey, what if I do an entire process video for you? I recently did that for a creator called Wildlife with Cookie, and his video was a 1 out of 10, which got 10 times the average amount of views that he gets on a video. So I said, let's take this to the next step. Not just writing the title and designing the thumbnails, but also coming up with the video's concept and writing the introduction for it. Oh, and by the way, at the end of this video, I'll even show you the results. So hopefully we'll see a real change with her views with this video compared to her other ones. All right, let's dive into part one, which is coming up with a video idea. All right, so this here is Heather's channel. And as you can see, all the video ideas are to do with children's books, designing them and coming up with drawings and stuff like that. The first thing I did was just write down the questions that I would have if I were to design a children's book. I haven't made a children's book before, so all I'm going to do is write down the questions that I have. So, what should the story be about? Do I design images? How do I plan the book? How do I export and format the book? Where do I then sell the book? What mistakes should I avoid? What are common mistakes with Amazon KDP? Do I need a professional software? So they're the questions that come to mind. Now, what I'd like to do is just look at, are any of these questions here something that you could answer in about 2 seconds? Then we don't want to have that as the video idea. So how do I know if it's a success? If you got 200 sales. Okay, well, we just answered that entire video's premise in 1 second. That's not going to now be a very good video, or it's going to be very difficult to make a video on that. That's a decent length because you can answer it so quickly. So we want to pick the questions where we could make a video that's 5 to 10 minutes long or longer, depending on what your average video length is. So I sent 3 of the questions that I liked the most to Heather. And out of how to plan a children's book, the best place to sell your children's book, and the most common Amazon KDP mistakes, she responded with, the idea I would like to do the most is common KDP mistakes. And then she actually even told me the 5 most common mistakes, which will help me actually in writing the intro, which we'll do later in this video. But now that we have the concept, which is Amazon KDP mistakes, let's come up with 3 titles. And then after that, let's design the thumbnails. Okay, we have 2 ways here to get views. If I really simplify it, we have recommendation by YouTube. So that's the home feed, on the side, all that stuff. Or we have SEO. If we did SEO as the option here, so that's search engine optimization, then we could look at what are people exactly searching for? What's the exact search phrase? And then just have that as the title. So instead of what are common mistakes with Amazon KDP, I'm sure there is an exact thing that people are searching for. But whatever it is, I don't want to do SEO for this. I want to do recommendation. I want to write a title here that people aren't searching for, but they're seeing it on their home feed, they're seeing it on the side panel, etc. And then they're thinking, hey, I want to click on that video. Okay, the most common Amazon KDP mistakes. Don't make these Amazon KDP mistakes. Amazon KDP mistakes that ruin your... Okay, we have 2 options here. We could say your children's book, and then the total addressable market for that is going to be a lot smaller. So children's book here, the amount of people interested in making a children's book is going to be, whatever the audience size is. But if we just take the people interested in making a book, that is going to be a lot larger of an audience. A lot more people are interested in making a book, whatever that is, a novel, poetry, whatever, compared to people that want to make specifically a children's book. Do we specifically say children's book or not? I don't know. I don't know if it matters. I'm sure the advice would be the same. So I don't know if there's a need to narrow it down, because whether you're making a children's book or you're not, you'd still click on that video. So I don't know if there's a benefit to making the total addressable market too small. I'm using a lot of fancy jargon here, but basically total addressable market means how many people could this apply to? How many people could be interested in this? One thing we could do is just make this a listicle, obviously. 5 common Amazon KDP mistakes. So one thing I want to do here is make this sound really dramatic. Actually, what did she say they were? Selecting the wrong options, formatting fonts, relying on Amazon for sales, not adding A+ content. Not making they all come down to not making enough money or wasting a ton of money, right? If you misprint. We could do something like 5 Amazon KDP mistakes that waste money, that will ruin your success. Too vague. That ruin book sales. The problem with saying book sales is now again, it limits the target audience to only the amount of people who are already ready to publish their book and caring about sales. I want to make it broad enough where it would appeal to people who haven't even started the design process or like started the writing process. 5 common Amazon mistakes you must avoid. 5 common Amazon mistakes, Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. Maybe that looks a bit shouty. 5 common Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. That looks better. So there's 2 things I don't love about this title. The first one is, how do I know that I can trust Heather to tell me this? Author reveals the 5 most common Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. Now I know like why I can trust Heather to tell this, because otherwise it's just like this random person who's never published a book telling me. That won't be as appealing. Whereas, you know, having someone who's done this before telling me, that's a lot more interesting because, you know, they've done it before. There's a lot of trust there. This is long and I don't think it's dramatic enough. You know, I want it to sound common. Let's get rid of common. Author reveals the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes. Destroying? It has to destroy something if we're using the word destroy. But I don't want to say sales or anything like that because it just narrows the total addressable market too much. I think here this is the best title. Author reveals the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. That's not bad. I quite like that. Using my title formula, this checks all the boxes, and using my title maximizer cheat sheet, this ticks off all of that as well. So I am pretty happy with this. Now that we have the idea of the video, and we have the title, the next thing is the thumbnail. So let's open up Photoshop and start designing. First thing we want to do when we're designing a thumbnail is this thing that I call the caveman game. It is the C in my craft process. And basically in this stage here, we want to draw out our thumbnails. You can do this with AI, you can do this by hand. You can do this as I'm going to do now, just in Photoshop by quickly sketching. All we want to do here is understand what needs to be in the thumbnail. It doesn't need to look pretty or anything like that. We just want to understand the different components that we need in the thumbnail in order to explain the premise of the video. So the premise of this video is author reveals the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. I now need to take this title and visualize it. Cavemen communicated by drawing on cave walls, and they just used simple iconography in order to tell the story that they're trying to tell. So woolly mammoth, spear, meat. I now understand the story as the woolly mammoth got hunted for meat. I understand the premise from those icons alone. And that's exactly what we're going to do here in this stage. So the first thing we need is the author. Who is telling this story? So then here is Heather. That's my drawing of Heather. Okay. This is how bad the drawings can be, by the way. I'm not good at drawing, as you can tell. We understand author reveals the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes. We probably want to have the Amazon logo. I'll just do a square for the logo. 5 isn't important in the thumbnail. That doesn't need to come across. And then you must avoid, or mistakes. Now I need to understand that this is a mistake. So how do we do that? Let's do a laptop here. And then we'll just put this on a desk. And we'll have the word error or something like that. This person is going to tell me mistakes or errors that happen with Amazon KDP. So I can understand that whole premise just from this thumbnail layout here. I actually did a similar design for Ali Abdaal. I forgot what the video title was, but it was something like no code tools or something. And I designed that on his laptop. The code was being removed and being deleted in the bin. And I was really proud of that thumbnail because it was like a really creative way to show that this is no code. So something like that for this would be cool. We need the person in here, I think, to establish like, hey, this isn't going to be an AI slop channel, or this isn't just going to be voiceover. There's a real person who's actually done this before. They're an author. They're going to tell you this. We could do one where very similar. We have Heather here. There we go. We have, you know, the laptop. On here we have the logo, and then here we write author. So I can see this person is an author and it's to do with Amazon KDP. But these two here will be the arrangements that I use when designing the thumbnail. Now that we've done the caveman game, the next thing we're going to do is actually design. So let's jump into it. By the way, if you've made it this far into the video and not left a mean comment about this giant pimple, thank you. All right, one of the main elements here in this thumbnail is a photo of Heather. Luckily, Heather was very nice and sent me a bunch of photos of her at her desk. Now, one thing that's really crucial when you're selecting the photo to use in the thumbnail is to ensure the facial expressions match the energy of the title or the vibe of the title. So the vibe of this title, author reveals the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes you must avoid. That title is like scary, you know, mistakes you must avoid. So because of that, we can't have a photo of her looking happy. It needs to be, you know, something like this. That works. These aren't super high res photos. They're not, that one's good. They're not really high quality. She said in the email that she just hit record and then posed a bunch and then exported them. They're not like the highest quality and they're quite far away. So I'll have to do a bit of photoshopping. I like this photo and I'll just drag this up like that. That one's not bad because it's 5, you know, it's 5 mistakes you want to avoid. By the way, oh, whoops. Drop in the comments what you find the most useful in these videos. That way I know what to focus on and talk more about in future videos. All right, so here we have a photo of Heather. I will do remove background and then I'll do the same thing here, remove background. Now what I'm going to do is grab the blue from the wall here and have that as the background. One thing that I've talked about in quite a few videos is you want to ensure basically your thumbnail looks as close to the first frame as possible. The actual video opens up with this here, with her office, and it's got a blue background. I'm ideally going to want to use a blue background in the thumbnail. It's as close then as possible. Right now, all I'm trying to do is arrange all the different elements. I don't really care, you know, that all of this stuff here. I'll obviously clean that up after. Right now, I'm just trying to find the right arrangement for all of the different elements. All right, let's move these to the top here. So we have Heather here to the side. You could just get a photo of a desk online, but I'm actually just going to fake this like that and then add a bit of a gradient as well. Is that too much? I'll just drop the opacity here. She's actually got a white desk. So we'll do like, there we go, something like that. I'll just add an inner shadow. So I'll use Pexels to find an image. Pexels is great, it's free, not sponsored or anything. Laptop image, and now what I'm going to do is just cut that out like this very quickly. Remove background. Let's see, it did a bad job. Okay, I'll have to manually cut this out. By the way, I'm making something right now that is going to make this entire process so much faster. I won't reveal anything just yet, but be sure to subscribe if you design thumbnails, either for yourself or for clients. You are going to want to see the thing that I release very soon. All right, so we have this laptop here. I just realized though, this laptop is facing away from her and I can't just flip the image. Then the keyboard's opposite. You can't actually tell, but I'll know deep down. If I put this here, yeah, that works. All right, so I'll have the laptop there, have Heather there. One was going to be the Amazon KDP logo and one was going to be computer screen saying error. I'll just quickly add a white screen over this laptop just so we can see whatever's on the screen really clearly. Okay, one will have the word error or an error image or an error icon or something. And then we need the Amazon KDP logo at the top. Okay, the problem with the Amazon KDP logo is that it's square. So if I have that up here, we then have like a bunch of empty space here that's just not being used, which we don't want. We want everything to take up as much space as possible when designing. We'll have this logo on screen and we'll write avoid this. What font does she normally use? She seems to have a different font for every video. Avoid this. That's one. Obviously, I'll clean that up and stuff. I'm just trying to get the arrangements here. For this next one, I want the Amazon logo up here. KDP. It just says KDP after. Do they not have a horizontal logo? They need a horizontal logo. This stuff doesn't matter. Again, I'm just going to nerd out because I know how to. I'm just going to add a stroke on the end of it. That way, as you can see, it's now curved. Just so we have better contrast, I'm actually just going to separate these here. We'll have the Amazon KDP here. And then on the screen here, we want like error or something like that. All right, I want a screenshot on the computer of Amazon KDP. I'm hoping she has a screenshot in one of these videos. All right, I can grab this screenshot here just so I can put something on the computer and it's not just the error. I don't think that will look very legitimate. We want it to look like this error is actually coming up on screen. So obviously if it's just an error icon, that won't look very realistic. This here actually does look realistic now. And then I might have a few. Does that look cheesy? I don't know. I don't think it does. Maybe just the one. I don't know. Maybe that looks too cluttered. The annoying thing about the Amazon logo is that it has an arrow, and now ideally I want an arrow that goes from here to there. I think I'll still do that though. So we have this one, we have this one, and then what was the other one going to be? Error and author. That's right. Again, if you're not subscribed and you design thumbnails, you are going to love the thing that I'm working on. That looks good. All right, and this one's gonna be number 3. So then we have avoid this. I'll duplicate. Actually, you know what? Avoid this for her channel because it's very wholesome and stuff. I want to have like curved corners and stuff. It just seems a bit less, you know, just angry. Like I don't want it to look too angry. It should still spark, you know, fear or whatever. We're going to do a bit of photoshopping. I recommend when, you know what, I'll just show you. I'm aware this is kind of cringe, but what you want to do is just stand, you know, with a reasonably clear background and take a bunch of photos like this. That way you can easily just drag and drop them and you just kind of build up a little library of photos of you. Because when it's a clear background like this one, if I now just click on remove background, as you can see, it does a very good job of removing everything. Even my hair here has been cut out really well. And that's because there wasn't anything going on in the background. The photos that Heather sent me have, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, and it's very difficult for Photoshop to tell the difference between, you know, where does this end and this start. So that just means when you click on Photoshop remove background, then it just struggles with all of these details. So I'll just have to manually remove that. It's not a big deal. As you can see, it takes like, you know, 2 minutes. But still, if you're, you know, designing thumbnails every week, might as well save yourself a bunch of time. I do this with the lasso tool. I know some people do it with the pen tool. I know some people just do it with the eraser tool. There's a bunch of ways of doing this. That's the way I work. If you do it another way, that's completely fine. So what I'm going to do here is filter, camera raw filter. This here is a godsend if you're designing thumbnails in Photoshop. So what we're going to do here is the classic smoothing of skin. So I add sharpening and then I do noise reduction. I'll just zoom in so you can see better. Here's without noise reduction, and then here is with noise reduction. So that's how the big YouTubers are doing it. There's other ways of doing it as well, but this is one way of doing it. So now that we've added sharpening and noise reduction, the next thing I'm going to do is just play with the exposure and contrast and highlights and stuff. Now, one thing I talk about in my course is you basically want to ensure that you don't waste any space. So negative space is good in thumbnails, but all that means is you don't want to add unnecessary context. Images and visuals that don't provide context, you're not going to want to have them. But this space here isn't being used, and we might as well, because thumbnails, you know, we're going to see it like this small. Because of that, we want everything to take up as much space as we can. You know, something like that. I might as well make that larger as well. All right, we have this one, and then this one. But for this one, I want a different, avoid this. Oh, wait. I'll do this one with avoid this. That way she can take up more room like that. Again, we're just having the elements take up as much space as possible. And then because her background was quite busy, you know, there's this small stuff here. Other things like this is so particular, but if you're this deep into the video, you care about this stuff. Technically, that t-shirt bit does extend outward there, but it just makes, there's more stuff, and I don't want more stuff. So we want to get rid of as much as possible, basically. And if that shirt there sticks out for no reason, then just get rid of it, you know? No one's gonna click on the video and be like, oh, wait a minute, in the thumbnail, that shirt actually does have a little thing sticking out at the end. But by removing it, it does make the thumbnail more legible. It's just easier to read, which is really, really important with thumbnails. Just like how easy can you digest the thumbnail, which isn't, you know, typical advice like add saturation or whatever, but very, very important. I realized the desk is sticking out wrong. There we go. That's better. So we have number 1, avoid this. And we need to know what to avoid. So that will be, can I just use this arrow? Yes, I can. Avoid this. Maybe I'll make that red. And now what I'm going to do is just edit, transform, distort. Just make sure this looks like it's actually sitting on the computer. All right, that Amazon logo, gonna add saturation to it. What I want to do is actually add a very, very slight gradient around her, which will just be super, super faint. The background looks just quite flat right now. I'm also going to try one where the background is just a bit more blue. That's a bit too cartoonish. I'm just going to be really picky here and add a shadow at the bottom of this laptop. Just gonna draw like that. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, inner shadow. I don't know if I like that blue. It looks a bit too, the blue's just a bit too vibrant. Like it looks a bit like a cheap channel. You know when stuff is like vibrant and stuff? It can come off like, oh, this isn't going to be authentic good advice because it just looks a bit childish. If it's too blue, then it might look like that. All right, let's have a look at this. We have the background, and then we have Heather, and then we have the desk. This is number one, which I really like. And also, oh no, it's just for number one. Cool. So this photo her for number one, and then we have this photo for number two. That's good. You know what? This color here, I'm going to make that the red that she has on her shirt. That looks better. Then we have this one, and then we have this one. So I finished the thumbnails, and then I went through my thumbnail checklist that I go through every single time I upload it. That checklist is part of my course. And when going through the checklist, I realized that the thumbnails that I designed for Heather needed some tweaks just so they would be as optimized as possible. This is why I go through the thumbnail checklist. Even though I'm following my formulas and my design process, it's still good to use the checklist at the end. That way, anything you might have missed can be fixed before upload. So now we have the idea of the video, the title of the video, and the 3 thumbnails. The next thing that I said I would do is the intro. Now I have a formula for this as well called the intro formula. So let's write it. The intro formula is idea, notability, takeaway, risk, and open loops. This formula is perfect for videos under about 20 minutes. If you've got a video that's over 20 minutes, then I have another formula called the introduction formula. But this, I'm presuming, is going to be under 20 minutes. So this intro formula is perfect for that. So the title we went with is Author Reveals the 5 Amazon KDP Mistakes You Must Avoid. So then the idea is we just want to repeat the idea that's presented in the thumbnail and title. So this would be, today I'm revealing the 5 Amazon KDP mistakes, the 5 most common Amazon KDP mistakes that you need to avoid. Notability. So for the notability section of the intro formula, we have to understand, why is Heather the right person to deliver this information? I'm a published author. Okay, this is her website, about me. What has she written? Written and illustrated a few children's books. There we go. So then the notability is, I'm a published author of children's books, and on this channel I help, I help aspiring authors and illustrators publish their own book. All right, so for the takeaway section here, we have to understand, what are we going to learn from this video? What is the big takeaway? I've seen the 5 she sent were selecting the wrong options in KDP, formatting your files incorrectly, using standard fonts, relying on Amazon for sales, and not adding A+ content. And I've seen the same 5 mistakes pop up time and time again with first-time self-publishing on Amazon KDP. Okay, and here comes the risks. All right, so for this risk part of the formula, we have to understand, what are the different risks that someone could fall into. Falling into these common traps will result in days of lost work, books that get rejected by KDP, or what else happens? Or even making your book completely, or even your book being completely unreadable. All right, the last part here is the open loops. Now, the reason we do this is to keep people hooked throughout the entire video. Because if we just establish a singular takeaway, and people will just skip to the end or skip to the one takeaway. And that will cause a massive dip in your retention, a spike where you get the answer, and then a dip after that again. So by adding some open loops in the intro, it gives me a reason to watch the full thing. So what are some open loops? So the mistakes she said were selecting the wrong options in KDP, formatting, ensuring you set up your Amazon KDP book correctly and understand the small tweaks. These small tweaks be the determiner? That's a word, right? Determiner. Demeanor. No, wait. Determiner. Am I mispronouncing that? Determiner. What am I doing? Will decide whether your book succeeds or gets lost in the sea of self-publishing. Maybe a bit dramatic, but I think this is a pretty good intro. So this should be about 30 seconds to a minute long, and it has all the different components that I look for in the intro. Today, I'm revealing the 5 most common Amazon KDP mistakes that you need to avoid. I'm a published author of children's books, and on this channel, I help aspiring authors and illustrators publish their own books. And I've seen the same 5 mistakes pop up time and time again with first-time self-publishing on Amazon KDP. And falling into these traps will result in days of lost work, books that get rejected by the KDP platform, or even making your book completely unreadable. Ensuring you've set up these Amazon KDP book correctly and understanding these small tweaks will decide whether your book succeeds or gets lost in the sea of self-publishing. Hello, okay, let's go through the data. So she sent a few different emails that were just updating me on what's happening with the views and stuff. So I wanted to go through that as well as explaining what the algorithm was thinking, or my guess of what it was thinking throughout these 3 different stages. So she emailed me saying, hey, it's a 1 out of 10, how exciting. It started out so low and then kept climbing, which I'll go through, but here you can see it is a 1 out of 10, which is really cool. So before that, she sent an excited email saying it's jumped to 2 out of 10. But before that, the first email I got was, hi Leo, it's doing pretty good. It's 3 out of 10 right now. I'm glad because it was like a 7 out of 10 in the morning and then a 5 out of 10 in the afternoon. So I guess it just took some time to pick up a bit. Attached is a screenshot of the ranking so far. So here was a 3, then it went to a 2, then it went to a 1. So I wanted to go through exactly why this happened and literally explain the data. So at first, it was a 3 out of 10. And basically, what the algorithm does is first show this video, so give the impression of this video. It first gives that impression to your most loyal viewers, because YouTube wants you to win. So it thinks, okay, what's the best way that this video could win? Well, I'm going to show it to the most loyal fans of this channel. But her exact target audience, her most loyal fans, they are going to be children's book authors. And her most previous videos are all to do with children's book illustrations as well. So there's a slight mismatch there, which was a risk that I was willing to take with this video idea, because I thought it could appeal to this target audience, but also a broader audience, and I'll go through how that happened. But basically, we can see this through the data here. We've got a high AVD, so even the AVD went up because of the optimized intro formula there. But basically the AVD is high, and most likely it's going to be the highest with your most loyal audience. Because they're very loyal, you know, they know what to expect for your channel. They clearly like it if they keep coming back. YouTube knows this. But you can see the CTR here is quite low. It's 2.4 something. That's not great. And the reason is basically it's the wrong topic. Children's book, it's not even children's book authors, it's children's book illustrators for her channel, which are her main, most loyal fans. So it's just the wrong topic. They're like, oh, I want to know how to draw this specific character thing or something like that. Some really specific, like niche illustration thing. That's what they care most about, her loyal audience, not, Amazon KDP settings. Just as an example with how this works, Colin and Samir is one of my favorite channels. If you watch me, you watch them. And here's just an example of this. High AVD is loyal, so if I start watching a Colin and Samir video, I will watch the entire thing, I love Colin and Samir, I'll watch the whole thing. But sometimes if I don't know the channel, or if I'm not like super interested in the person they're interviewing, I might not click at all. No offense to these two. My AVD is going to be high because I know exactly the production quality and everything I'm getting when I click onto it, but the CTR might depend on, what the actual topic is. And it's the same thing here. Higher AVD, they know what they're getting when they click, but the CTR depends on what the topic is, and her most loyal audience don't specifically care about this topic. But basically there was promise here. So YouTube's still thinking, you know what, there's hope here, I still think I should give it impressions. So then what happened is YouTube showed it to a broader audience. And now in this stage, when YouTube says, I'm not just going to show it to the most loyal audience, I'm going to go a bit broader with it. Basically what happens is your average view duration drops. So here it's 346, here it's 408. The average view duration is lower because these fans aren't as loyal. So they might not stick around for as long as these people here, as this example here. I'm a very loyal Colin and Samir fan, so I'll watch the whole thing. Now they're going to show it to people who aren't as loyal of a fan, so they might not watch the whole thing, or they might not watch as long. And you can also see the CTR drops. CTR drops, these people, again, aren't as loyal. But basically, YouTube's like, all right, there's still hope for this video. It's just being shown to the wrong people. So then what happens is YouTube's like, I need to show this to the Amazon KDP audience. So it takes some time, hence hers was, steadily climbing. And now when it's starting to show it to the Amazon KDP audience, the AVD increases ever so slightly, but, that's a good sign. And my guess is that it will keep slowly increasing over time as the better fit is watching it, the people who care about the topic specifically. And you can see the CTR here increases as well. So again, the people who care about that topic are being shown this video. And now it turned into a 1 out of 10. So my guess, fingers crossed, is that this is going to keep climbing. Now I took a bit of a risk with this video idea here because her core audience doesn't specifically care about Amazon KDP settings as much as they care about children's book illustrations. There's obviously still a very clear crossover in those two topics there. Like if you make children's book, you probably also care about the publishing of that children's book. But for an easy win next time, she might make a video more about the illustration side of things, or maybe more specifically about children's books, rather than going broad and going anyone publishing on Amazon KDP. Either way, ended very well. She got a 1 out of 10 on her channel, which I'm very happy with. If you want my help, check out my course below. It includes my title masterclass, my thumbnail masterclass, and my thumbnail design process. Or if you want one-on-one consulting, you can apply below. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video where I do the exact same thing for another channel called Wildlife with Cookie, where I try to get him a 1 out of 10 too. Thanks for watching.